single night for the next 57 nights. The same thing would happen again the next.
Hi guys, welcome back to Nostalgic Sensation. Vivian here. Today I'm going to be educating myself, or rather learning about the Blitz, a short documentary which was recommended to me on this channel. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Feel free to join the train, and if you've always been here, thank you for supporting. Without further ado, I'm going to be diving right into today's video. So let's get into it.
On the 7th of September 1940, a year into World War II, Germany launched an unprecedented bombing raid on London. Until this point, German bombers had focused mainly on military targets. Now they turned their attention to civilian ones, in an attack that killed 450 and injured 3 times that number. Moreover, this attack marked a drastic change in German tactics. From this day forward, London would be bombed almost every single night for the next 57 nights, in a sustained campaign of destruction that became known as the Blitz.
Oh my god. 57
In 1940, France surrendered to German invaders. This left Germany, under the command of dictator Adolf Hitler, to focus its attention on Britain. Hitler had a strong desire to carry out a full-scale invasion of Britain, but there was one obstacle that stood in his way: Britain's Air Force. The Royal Air Force, or RAF, was formidable. Though it had far fewer aircraft than the German Luftwaffe, its pilots were highly motivated to defend their country, and were bolstered by volunteers from around the world. Britain's use of the new technology of radar was also much more advanced than Germany's, giving them a significant edge when it came to responding to incoming attacks. On top of this, German attackers had many different objectives: destroying facilities on the ground, engaging in the air, and targeting and blockading ships in the waters around Britain. British fighters, on the other hand, were focused almost entirely on engaging the German threat. This singular purpose, combined with technology like the highly maneuverable Spitfire, allowed Britain's relatively small force to withstand one German attack.
That is so courageous. Like, they focused their tactics on engaging the German soldiers. Like, they had to be ready to die. Like, they had to prepare their mind that they could die doing this, but they did it anyway. So freaking courageous.
After another. Germany's superior numbers, however, eventually started to wear down the RAF. Were it not for a chain of events that took place in August 1940, it's likely that Germany would eventually have prevailed. It was late in August when some German bombers accidentally dropped their payloads on civilian areas near London. Up until this point, Germany had aimed mainly for military targets, and so it was a shocking development that they should appear to target civilians. In response, on the 25th of August 1940, Britain bombed Berlin, enraging Hitler to the point that he commanded a change in strategy. German planes would now focus on decimating British cities, London in particular. The British government had long feared that Germany would launch a campaign against the civilian population. Some preparations had already been made. In 1939, thousands of children had been evacuated from urban areas to the countryside.
Wow.
Shelters had also been distributed to city dwellers. Anderson shelters were buried in back gardens, while Morrison shelters could be installed inside the home. Blackouts had also been enforced in many urban areas to make it difficult for enemy planes to locate their targets. Beyond these preparations, though, life had continued with some semblance of normality. People went to work as normal, gathered in pubs and cinemas, and went about their daily business in cities that were, for the most part, intact. This all changed on the 7th of September 1940, a day that would later become known as Black Saturday. On this day, a massive German raid killed over 450 people and wounded more than 1,500 in London alone. Shocking and devastating as it was, Black Saturday was just a taste of what was to come. After this date, bombing raids continued almost every night. Population centres such as Liverpool, Bristol, Manchester, Cardiff, Glasgow and Southampton were targeted, but London was subjected to by far the most intense bombing campaign of all. These raids were devastating. Whole streets were obliterated. Churches, schools, cinemas, hospitals and pubs were flattened or consumed by flames. Air raid sirens rang out every night, sometimes multiple times each night. Most citizens were, on a daily basis, exposed to death, destruction and scenes of absolute horror. They lived their lives ready at a moment's notice to flee to shelters, where they would spend hours huddling cold and afraid. Explosions rang out through the city above. When the all clear finally sounded, they would emerge to fight fires, clear rubble, bury the dead and treat the injured, knowing that, in all likelihood, the same thing would happen again the next night, and the next, and the next. Many famous London landmarks were damaged but not destroyed. Buckingham Palace, the Imperial War Museum, the Tower of London, the London Zoo, St Paul's Cathedral, and the Houses of Parliament were all hit but survived, in no small part thanks to the heroic work of firefighters in the city. While many famous buildings were saved, thousands of ordinary homes and workplaces were not. The Docklands area of London, home to many working-class families, was particularly badly hit. The nearby docks were a desirable target and so attracted many bombs. This combined with a shortage of space in shelters and very few resources for rebuilding bomb-damaged areas to make the Docklands one of the places most severely affected. Despite the unending horror of the Blitz, though, life carried on. People went to work and some pubs, theatres and cinemas remained open. People were often pictured carrying on with their day-to-day work despite the devastation around them. There are many examples of people using humour as a way of dealing with the horrific conditions of the Blitz, and pictures from the time appear to document a sense of cheerful endurance.
People who are going through difficult times and they can always find a way to laugh about it. I feel like those are the most mentally strong people, because it is not easy to be in a situation like you're seeing people dying every day and you find a way to find joy in it. I think it's very, very hard to do something like that, and I can't imagine what it felt like to be in this situation. You know that things can get worse every day, but you just find a way to live normally. You find a way to just enjoy life regardless. That it must be very difficult, and I need to give it to them for being so mentally strong to even be able to carry on like nothing is happening. It's worthy to point out.
The attitude that prevailed, at least according to official accounts, was typified by the now famous morale-boosting campaigns run by the British government, with slogans like, "Your courage, your cheerfulness, your resolution will bring us victory," and "Keep calm and carry on." This Blitz spirit is something that is often fondly remembered and has become a point of national pride, but at the same time it represents only some of the story. Subjected to nightly near-death experiences, many people suffered a range of mental health problems: night terrors, bedwetting, nervous collapse and psychosis. Some gave up on seeking shelter when the air raid sirens sounded. In the blackout-darkened streets, crime was at an all-time high, and there were few resources to combat it. Fear and nervous tension were pervasive. Personal records from the time reflect the fact that almost everyone was terrified and suffering, but had no choice but to carry on with their lives. The fact that they did carry on was viewed by the government as evidence of high morale among civilians, and this was used extensively for propaganda purposes. In fact, the stress and suffering of the British people was made worse due to the government not providing adequate shelters. Anderson shelters were damp and cold and would provide protection only from shrapnel and not from an actual bomb blast. Morrison shelters would protect those inside from collapsing buildings, but not from the fires or thick choking clouds of dust that often followed. Some dedicated shelters were built using incorrect materials. resulting in them simply crumbling when hit, providing little or no protection.
Wow.
There was great demand for deep, underground shelters, similar to those that the government had constructed for its own personnel.
Why?
But the government was reluctant to provide these, fearing that if they were available to ordinary people, those ordinary people might retreat underground and never leave, thus hampering the war effort. As a
That's
result,
not fair
Londoners
at all.
were initially forbidden from
No,
using the tube
that's
network for shelter.
not fair at all.
Desperate, many Londoners did so anyway by buying tickets and refusing to leave the station during air raids. It was only after an escalating series of protests that the government relented and allowed ordinary people to shelter in
That's
tube
not fair.
stations deep below ground. These proved popular and were soon fitted with toilets, beds, medical facilities, and more. These shelters, of course, were not without their hazards. Some years later, in 1943, 173 people died in a crush at Bethnal Green Underground Station, the worst single loss of civilian life during World War II to take place in the UK. As shelters were developed and people adapted to the hellish uncertainty of life under Blitz conditions,
thinking you're going to be safe. Like, imagine being in a situation thinking, oh, this is my safe place. This is the reason I'm going to see tomorrow. And then one day you just never wake up. Like, one day you're dead. That is so devastating. Like, I can't imagine the hopes that were crumbled that night. It's so devastating. War is so horrible.
the bombing raids continued up and down the country. London was hammered night after night, while attacks on other cities were more sporadic but were devastating when they came. On the 14th of November 1940, the city of Coventry was devastated by a particularly prolonged raid, which flattened 4,300 homes. The destruction was so comprehensive that some German leaders would thereafter use the word Coventriet or Coventryed as a byword for total destruction.
Like, what is so terrible? Like, imagine having it all in one moment, and then all it takes is just one raid and you're back to nothing. No home, no clothes, no shelter, no food. It just takes everything away from you. Like, this is insane. It flattened over 4,000 homes. Are you kidding? I can't imagine the devastation. And these people managed to keep their heads up. Nah, this is an insane level of strength, an insane level of mental strength. Even when the government failed them, they just kept their heads up. Oh my God.
In May of 1941, after an unimaginable period of near-daily raids, the Blitz came to an end, called off by Hitler himself. He now wished to send his forces east to fight the Soviet Union, and could not spare the air power needed to continue the relentless attack. Unbeknownst to him, however, the Blitz that he had overseen had already changed the course of the war, though not in the way he had hoped. Hitler's shift in focus from hitting military targets to hitting population centres had allowed the Royal Air Force a chance to recover, rebuild, and reinforce. Had the Luftwaffe continued to strike military targets, Britain's forces would have been decimated. As it was, they now stood a fighting chance against the German war machine. The people of London, Liverpool, Manchester, and other British cities who survived the Blitz survived a living nightmare, sometimes with very little protection or support. Their suffering, at least, was not for nothing.
I don't know, every time I have to listen to anything about war, it just brings me to tears. Like, even if it's not my experience, I can't imagine being in the shoes of these people and, living my life thinking, oh, I could die tomorrow. Like, that's insane. Like, and these people just carried on. I usually see this keep calm stuff on shirts and stuff, but I never really understood where it came from. So now I understand that it is, from the it's from basically the Blitz, really. And this is somewhat empowering, devastating, heartbreaking. Like, I have to give it to the Brits for, being so strong mentally, being so resilient. Like, their armies thought, you know what, I'm going to hold off the German shoulder. Like, even if you soldiers, even if putting my life on the line, and I like that. That is really really nice, and that is very empowering. So, I mean, in as much as it's a tragic comedy, it's a story that ends like on a good way, it doesn't change the fact that people died. It doesn't change the fact that many were left homeless. It doesn't change the fact that people had to, start their life all over again. It doesn't change the fact that there were people who were probably under the rebels for hours and died a slow and painful death, which makes war never really a good thing, even if it kind of ends in a good way where like you're not being comprehended or anything like that. But yeah, in the meantime, thank you guys so much for stopping by my YouTube channel today, and thank you for recommending this, because I genuinely enjoy learning about these histories. I really do, because these things are no longer taught in schools. And every time I get to learn about, people's history, I get to understand a lot of things better, and I believe other people also do the same. So thank you guys so much. I really appreciate the recommendations. Thank you so much. In the meantime, thank you guys so much for watching. Until next time, bye.
Thanks for watching Nostalgic Tribe. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you enjoyed today's video, please do not forget to like, subscribe, and let me know in the comment section of what you think about today's video. And if you love to be an active member of the Nostalgic Tribe community, you can now do that by joining our membership club. We have the bronze, the silver, the diamond, and there is something for everybody. You can now make specific requests for your favorite music that you love to see on this channel, and you get access to exclusive content and live streams and listening parties that we would be hosting at Nostalgic Sensation. And if you also love to support the channel, you can do that by sharing the super likes, super stickers, super chats, and you can also buy me a coffee. And most of all, I love to connect with my subscribers. I love to connect with my supporters because you guys have been my biggest supporters from day one. And so, if you love to also be a pen pal with me, you can have access to my email, and I promise that I'm going to definitely respond. All links are in the description down below, and you can also purchase the Nostalgic Sensation merch, a nice round neck t-shirts, and our variables are available for you as well. And if you also love to check out our ebooks, that is also available for you. All links, once again, are in the description down below. And do not forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comment section. Once again, thank you so much for keeping the nostalgia alive. And I do look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye.